latest low point for a young season that's had plenty of them. They get shut out last night by one of the worst teams in hockey. This is the second time this season where they've not just lost to, record-wise, if not the worst team in hockey, a bottom three team in hockey. It's not the first, it's the second time. This happened in Nashville last week. Now it happened last night at home to Philadelphia, who, as you heard Bob Beers say, they're a Flyers team at the bottom in the league in goals against. 40 goals allowed in 9 games. Bottom 5 team, one of the worst defensive teams in hockey. Shut you out at home, and in the third period, you generated 3 shots on net.
Mm-hmm.
You had only 23, I want to say, for the game, and you had 4 power plays, including a 5-on-3 against, did I mention, the worst defensive team, and one of the worst defensive teams in hockey? And tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock on Jim Montgomery. Isn't it obvious? If you're watching, they're broken. They've completely let go of the rope. I don't know if it's between the players and the coaches, players and players, but they are not engaged, not by a long shot, and it keeps getting worse. And every time I see Jim Montgomery turn around and get after his players, it goes from bad to worse. Last night wasn't as dramatic as some of the past, but after they allowed their 1 goal of the game, Montgomery was shown turning down the bench and giving it to someone, if not the whole team or whoever. You didn't know where it was exactly directed. But he did this, we've seen this a couple times. Outburst, letting them have it. Immediately, they take another penalty and go on the PK. Immediately. I think Carlo went in for a slash. And it's like, every time I've seen Montgomery do this, not only does he not get a response, it seems to go in the other direction.
Right.
And so they've clearly tuned out their coach, quit on their coach, quit on themselves, quit on the season, given up on the let go of the rope, however you want to phrase all that. And as it stands right now, they're not going to make the playoffs.
I mean, their response after getting earholed so far this season has been almost childlike defiance is what it looks like. It really does.
You know what? I would take defiance over this. They kind of roll over.
Thanksgiving is 4 weeks from tomorrow. And yes, they are only 3 points out of a playoff berth. 2 points out of a playoff berth, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, but that doesn't do it justice. They have the 7th lowest point total in the league.
But they are the 7th team out of the wild card. In other words, they're the 7th wild card. There's 5 teams ahead of them. Okay, so as we know, what's the cliche I was just looking for? But whatever.
U.S. Thanksgiving.
It comes quick. No, well, U.S. Thanksgiving, if you're not above the playoff line at Thanksgiving, you tend to not get there. So we all know those numbers. It is true. It still holds true in the NHL. You don't get there by Thanksgiving. The odds are stacked dramatically against you. As it stands right now, they're not going to make the playoffs. If they don't do something drastic, they're not going to make the playoffs. And let me tell you, in closing, when you don't make the playoffs, that's when the GM around here gets fired. The GMs keep their jobs as long as they make the playoffs. It's the coach that gets it. As soon as they start missing the playoffs, that's when the GM goes. And Don Sweeney and Cam Neely will be damned if they're going to go down with the ship. So they're not going to lose their jobs. The coach goes first, and that gets them into the playoffs, and the cycle repeats. But I am surprised that Jim Montgomery is still here as it stands. Your thoughts?
He's not going to last much longer. I can't see how that. The only reason to keep him is that you think you're going to need the bump later. You see what I'm getting? In other words, I think it's a foregone conclusion that he's gone one way or the other, and I don't mean at the end of the season. He's not going to make it. They're not responding. As you said, not only are they not responding, it's getting worse. So the only reason to we don't want to do it until December because we want to get a bigger bump later. I don't think they can wait. They're digging themselves too big a hole. Mike, they have the 7th worst record in the league. 7th.
So a bigger bump. I didn't understand what you were saying at first.
From the firing.
The sugar high of the new coach.
Exactly. Like, the Bruins, the last time they did it was somewhere in the middle of the year. Remember with Cassidy?
They did it on Patriots Parade Day.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So
and they got in the playoffs. Yeah.
So it was much later in the year. I think it'd be pretty unusual to fire a coach this early. I think they have to.
Well, they fired Pat Burns this time, whatever year that was, 99, 2000? 2000, I want to say. They fired him, actually, it was last week is when they fired Pat Burns.
So, again, that's been a while. To me, it is, I think they got to act. That thing last night was bad. That was bad.
Nothing Go ahead.
I mean, it was Philadelphia's first regular season win here in 13 years in regulation. Like that's a terrible team, and this just can't be about guys having like career years. So like one of my Bruins buddies that like defends them until like he's blue in the face. He's like, well, it's because guys had career years last year. You have to expect that there's going to be a drop off for like Coyle or Zacha. It's not just that. Like these guys aren't that bad and this inept. So Marchand looks kind of washed. That might be a problem.
No. I'm sorry, Murray. They have roster problems, which prevents them from being an elite team right now.
Sure. But these guys aren't this bad.
No, God, Philly's one of the worst teams in the league.
Oh, they should be better than this. The Bruins should be way better than this. Way better.
No, I mean, if you watch, there's clearly something wrong.
They look slow and disinterested.
So, I mean, it's just obvious. So, I don't know if the problem there is between the coach and the players. Doesn't feel great. I don't know if there's something going on with the coach where the team is distracted by it. Or I don't know, or they know he's gone, so they've just taken this opportunity to just sort of quit or something. I don't know. It's something. There's something there. Mazz mentioned last week, Brown checkmark source, that they're not getting the leadership they need out of Brad Marchand. That could mean a lot of different things. That could be, just sort of a polite way to say there's something wrong there too. So
some sort of disconnect is what I would guess between, because I told you, I think that is the link from the coaching staff to the dressing room. Okay, that it goes through the captain.
Yeah. So if Marchand's cashed and Coyle has come way off what he was last year, and Elias Lindholm is disappointing, and these players, that's fine. Then they're in 5th place. They're not in 20th. You know what I mean? Again, I'm just making those numbers up, but they're listing and falling down, but they're not going to the bottom, which is where they are. And some of these nights, they're just not even showing up. It's obvious, and nothing Montgomery has done has worked. So that tells you they've tuned him out. Today at practice apparently, and he's been doing this all year, but he completely blew up the forward lines. Completely. Taking wingers and making them centers and all of this. So pretty much all year, Lindholm, the big free agent that they signed, who is like so invisible, it's like you don't even know that he's playing half the time. You don't know that he's out there. Lindholm had been centering Pastrnak pretty much all year. Today, Montgomery put Pavel Zacha, who had been playing wing most of the year, back at center for Pastrnak, which is what it was last year, and that actually did kind of work. So Zacha centering Pastrnak and John Beecher. So now Beecher's up to the first line. Elias Lindholm between Brad Marchand and Mark Kastelik. Patra centering Frederick and Brazeau. And Charlie Coyle, I'm going to say on the 4th line, centering Max Jones and Koepka.
Oh, boy.
Koepke.
He really picked on Coyle then, huh?
He should. He's done
No, I'm not saying it's wrong.
Absolutely nothing.
He singled him out is what he did.
You've had one line that's been going. It's that 4th line.
Right.
So what Montgomery said, all right, you know what? I'm going to sprinkle you throughout the roster because I need to, you used to have to do that with your stupid perfection line. Now you have to do it with your 4th line because everyone else is out to lunch. It's that bad. And they can't wait much longer. I'm telling you, I don't know how many games between now and, again, 4 weeks from tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So, just on average, that's probably going to be like 8 to 10 games, 11 games, something like that is a guess. If they don't, if they stay like this, if they don't do anything, they're going to miss the postseason, which would obviously be a disgrace given the money they've spent on the team and the roster and all of this. But it's coming. Make no mistake, unless something happens, they're not going to make it.
Well, the good news is they're playing at Carolina tomorrow. And
that's always been a good matchup.
No, they always get their ass kicked down there, so that'll be good.
I was going to say, no, they usually have their way down there.
No, that'll work well.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Bruins analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.